Most people think fasting is about what you don't eat. They think the whole point is absence, the removal of food, the endurance of hunger, the discipline of waiting. And if that's where your understanding stops, I completely understand why fasting feels hard, why it feels like punishment, why so many people start and quietly give up within a week. But here's what the research actually shows. Fasting isn't about what you remove, it's about what you activate. The moment your last bite goes down and you close the kitchen for the night, a biological countdown begins. And what your body does during that countdown is one of the most remarkable processes in all of human physiology. Today we're starting at the very beginning, hours 0 through 12. The first half of your overnight fast. The phase that almost everyone is already doing without realizing it, and that most people walk away from too early, right before the good stuff starts. This is part 1 of a 3-part series on what actually happens inside your body during a fast, stage by stage, backed by peer-reviewed research. If you want to understand why fasting works, not just that it works, but the specific biology of how, you're in the right place. And if you're over 50, pay close attention, because these mechanisms speak directly to the metabolic challenges and opportunities that come with being in the second half of life. Let's start at the very moment you finish eating. Stage 1. The fed state, hours 0 to 4. The moment you finish your last meal of the day, your body enters what physiologists call the fed state. It sounds unremarkable. You've eaten, digestion begins, nutrients get processed. Simple enough, but inside your cells and your bloodstream, a very specific set of events is already being set in motion. And understanding those events is the foundation for everything that follows. Your small intestine is breaking down what you just ate. Carbohydrates get cleaved into individual glucose molecules. Proteins get disassembled into amino acids. Fats get emulsified into fatty acids and glycerol. This process typically takes 2 to 4 hours, depending on what and how much you ate. A light meal of vegetables and protein clears faster. A dense, heavy meal with plenty of fat and carbohydrates takes considerably longer. As glucose enters your bloodstream, your pancreas releases its most powerful metabolic hormone, insulin. Insulin is the master signal of energy storage. Its message to your cells is simple. Fuel is here, use it, and store the rest. And it is extraordinarily efficient at doing exactly that. Glucose that isn't immediately used for energy gets packaged into chains called glycogen and stored in 2 places. The liver holds roughly 100 grams of glycogen, around 400 calories of rapidly accessible fuel. Skeletal muscle holds considerably more, somewhere between 300 and 500 grams, depending on your body composition and fitness. But here's the key distinction. Muscle glycogen stays in muscle. Only liver glycogen gets released back into the bloodstream to maintain blood sugar. That distinction matters enormously when we get to stage 2. While insulin is elevated, something equally important is being suppressed. Fat burning is essentially switched off. Insulin is an anabolic, storage-promoting hormone. It directly inhibits lipolysis, the enzymatic process that releases stored fat from adipose tissue. As long as insulin remains elevated, every calorie of stored fat in your body stays locked behind a hormonal door that simply will not open. The millions of calories potentially available in your fat stores are biologically inaccessible. For those of you over 50, this insulin dynamic deserves specific attention. Research published in the journal Nutrients, confirmed across multiple clinical trials, shows that insulin sensitivity tends to decline with age. It takes more insulin to produce the same glucose-lowering effect. In women approaching or past menopause, declining estrogen amplifies this pattern, reducing glucose tolerance and increasing the tendency toward insulin resistance. One carefully controlled study in over 100 overweight women found that 6 months of intermittent fasting reduced insulin levels by 29% and insulin resistance by 19%. That is a fundamentally altered metabolic landscape, not from medication, but from the strategic timing of food. Stage 1 ends when digestion completes and blood glucose begins its natural fall. The fed state gives way to something new, and that's where the first real transformation begins. Stage 2, the early fasting state, hours 4 to 12. Somewhere between 4 and 6 hours after your last meal, blood glucose levels start to fall. Digestion has finished. The flood of glucose from your meal has been absorbed, distributed, and largely dealt with. Insulin starts its descent, and in that descent, a quiet but consequential shift begins. As insulin falls, a different hormone rises. Glucagon, insulin's biochemical counterpart produced by different cells in the same pancreatic tissue, begins to increase. Where insulin says store, glucagon says release. It signals the liver to begin breaking down its glycogen reserves through a process called glycogenolysis, literally the splitting of glycogen, releasing glucose back into the bloodstream to keep your blood sugar from falling into dangerous territory. This is a beautifully designed maintenance system. Your brain, your red blood cells, and several other critical tissues are heavily dependent on a steady glucose supply. They can't simply switch fuels the way your heart or your muscles can. So your body runs this automatic backup, the glucagon-driven glycogenolysis response, silently and continuously between meals, keeping blood sugar stable without any conscious effort from you. At the same time, fat mobilization is beginning to stir. As insulin drops, the hormonal lock on your adipose tissue starts to loosen. The enzyme hormone-sensitive lipase, which insulin was suppressing, begins to activate. Fat cells start releasing free fatty acids into the bloodstream in small but increasing quantities. The direction of travel has changed. Your body is beginning its pivot from fuel storage to fuel mobilization. For most people, this stage happens largely while they sleep, which is exactly why the overnight fast is so metabolically valuable. Your body is executing this transition silently, automatically, without requiring you to endure anything. By the time you wake up after a full night's sleep, you may already be 9 or 10 hours into a fast, with glycogenolysis well underway and fat mobilization already building. The machinery is warming up. What you've just been through in stage 2 is the biological groundwork for something far more significant. The next 2 to 4 hours are where the real transformation begins, and it starts with a depletion. The 12-hour threshold. Why this moment matters. Around the 12-hour mark, something shifts that most people never reach, not because it's difficult, but because they eat before it happens. By this point, for most people eating a typical diet, liver glycogen stores are approaching significant depletion. Research published in NCBI's StatPearls reference database, drawing on decades of clinical physiology, describes glycogen stores as being substantially drawn down within 12 to 24 hours of fasting onset. The exact timing varies based on what you last ate, your overall metabolic health, and how active you've been. But the direction is the same for everyone. The liver's emergency fuel reserves are running low. When liver glycogen depletes, your body faces a choice. Blood glucose still needs to be maintained for the brain and other glucose-dependent tissues, but the glycogen tank is nearly empty. So your liver activates a secondary system, gluconeogenesis, the synthesis of new glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors. Amino acids from protein, glycerol released from fat breakdown, and lactate from red blood cells all become raw materials. Through this process, your liver manufactures glucose from scratch, maintaining blood sugar without any dietary carbohydrates at all. And simultaneously, this is the part that matters most. Lipolysis is now accelerating meaningfully. More fat is being released from adipose tissue. Free fatty acids are flooding into the circulation. And as your liver receives those fatty acids, it begins something that will define the next stage entirely. It starts converting them into ketone bodies. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, small amounts of acetone. These are not waste products. They are not dangerous. They are precisely what they were biologically designed to be, an alternative, clean-burning fuel source that can power almost every tissue in your body, including your brain. Ketones rising in the blood signal the beginning of what researchers call the metabolic switch, the transition from a body running primarily on glucose to a body running primarily on fat-derived fuel. For most people on a standard diet, this switch begins somewhere between 12 and 18 hours of fasting, and it is the single most important metabolic threshold in the entire fasting process. You've almost certainly heard that the benefits of fasting start at 16 hours. Now you understand exactly why. Because at 16 hours, you are not just further into the fast, you are in the middle of the metabolic switch. Your glycogen is depleted. Your body has turned to fat for fuel. Ketones are rising. The cellular maintenance program we'll talk about in part 2 is starting to stir. The biological changes happening at hour 16 are categorically different from anything happening at hour 4. What this stage actually feels like. Let's talk about the lived experience of moving through these first 12 hours, because the physiology is one thing and what you feel in your body is another. And understanding the connection between the two makes the challenging moments much more manageable. Hours 0 through 4 feel comfortable for almost everyone. Digestion is active, insulin is managing blood sugar, energy is available. Nothing unusual. Hours 4 through 10 feel like ordinary between meal time. Some hunger, cyclical and manageable. Possibly a slight dip in mental sharpness as blood glucose falls from its post-meal peak. For someone who has been practicing fasting for even a few weeks, this range is unremarkable. Hours 10 through 12 are where some first-time fasters start to notice something. A mild headache, sometimes. A slight fogginess. Maybe a wave of hunger that feels more insistent than the earlier ones. This is the glycogen drawdown zone, the body working through its final liver glycogen reserves, gluconeogenesis ramping up, fat, oxidation increasing. The metabolic machinery is shifting gears. And that shift has a physical feeling. Here is the most important thing to understand about that feeling. It is not a warning signal. It is a transition signal. It is your body telling you that something is changing, not that something is going wrong. And with consistent practice, as metabolic flexibility develops, that transition becomes smoother and quieter until most people stop noticing it at all. The fog, the mild headache, the insistent hunger. These are the footprints of the metabolic switch beginning. And on the other side of that switch, something remarkable happens, which is exactly what we're going to talk about in part 2. Closing and what's coming. In part 2. What we've covered today is just the beginning of the story. Hours 0 through 12, the fed state, the early fasting state, and the approach to the 12-hour threshold where liver glycogen depletes and the body begins its pivot toward fat and ketones. But what happens between hours 12 and 24 is where this gets genuinely extraordinary. The metabolic switch completes. Ketone levels in your blood rise measurably. A cellular process that earned its discoverer a Nobel Prize begins to activate. A process that your cells use to clean up decades of accumulated damage. And for those of you over 50, the implications of what happens in that window are directly relevant to the quality and longevity of your health. Part 2 drops next. If you don't want to miss it, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because when this series is complete, you're going to want all 3 parts. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what's actually happening inside your body during those first 12 hours, please take a second to like it. It genuinely helps this research reach the people who need it most. And leave a comment below. I want to know where you are in your fasting practice and what questions you most want answered in part 2. I'll see you in the next one.